It is 3 o'clock, so we are going to start our session. I just want to make sure everybody can see the slides. If you can just give me thumbs up. If you can see the slides, that's fantastic. We shared the bit.ly link. Bit.ly link is just a very quick link to let you access the presentation quickly before and during the session. If it's easier, if you want to use your phone, you can do the QR code and scan the presentation as well. Zoom tips. I know many of us have been using Zoom for so long, but still just a very quick reminder that we have the ASL interpreters with us. So Rebecca is one of our interpreters for today. She will be showing up close to the top for the recording purposes. If any of you want pinning privileges, our co-hosts have that privilege, but if you're not the co-host and you really want to pin somebody else in the video, let me know. We will be happy to give you those privileges. And then a tip around the gallery viewing. So if you want to see more videos or make the videos bigger, your view option on the right, there's always 9 tiny squares where it says view. You can change that to gallery view. And when you do that, you are going to have this bar that you can move to the left and right to adjust the size of your videos. It always makes a difference for many of us to sort of make those videos bigger. So that's an option for you if you would like to utilize it. And as always, I invite you to use the chat. I can see there's some posting going in. Please say hello to each other. Have fun during the session today. Share what you know. That's the goal. It's really to kind of come together and explore as we go. The session for today is focusing on policies, ethics, and practices. It's going to be a bit of a mix for all of us. So we will have quick introductions. Then we are going to get into presentations, questions and conversations, some tips if we can. And then we are going to wrap up and do a final feedback survey for the sessions. And as you can see, I'm going quickly through the presentation just because we have amazing guests joining us today. We have a bigger group, so we want to make sure you have a lot of information and resources that you can walk away with. So to do a quick introduction, I'm just going to say that from AlphaPlus, we have Alan, our executive director, and my colleagues Tracy and Guylaine. They're our professional learning specialists and organization development specialists. Really, we want to help you with whatever you need, but they have lots of great tips for you to discuss today. We also have Jacqueline from Good Learning Anywhere, Sue Hudson Literacy Council. If you use Good Learning Anywhere as an e-channel, you may know that they're using Moodle products and other things. That's Jacqueline behind the scenes. So she will be happy to share and tell you more about what she does. And from Contact North, we have Rick and Michael. They will be talking to us about some of the apps that they have produced using AI, about some of the guidelines that they discuss as well. So there's a lot of things to cover. Of course, you have me. My name is Monica. I have been with AlphaPlus for a while, and I host our showcases and our ASL interpreters, Rebecca and Kim. Hopefully, Kim is going to join us soon. If I missed it, I'm going to try to make sure that I also pin her so we have 2 interpreters in our sessions as we go. Okay? But in the meantime, I'm going to jump into the welcome message before we jump into the actual presentation. So we would like to begin by acknowledging the indigenous people of all the lands that we are here today. While we meet on a virtual platform, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of local indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. And what you see on the screen is a website, nativeland.ca, that gives you a breakdown of all of the different territories, languages, and treaties that you may want to review whenever you have a chance. But this is what we want to share and acknowledge today as well. So just to start talking about the topics for today and to give you a bit of background, some of you may have attended a session we did last month, and it was AI use in LBS. And this is AI policies, ethics, and practices in LBS. Last time we met, we talked to a lot of instructors who shared with us how they use AI in their practice or how they use AI for administrative purposes. So it was a bit of an opener for us to start talking and sharing about AI. Our goal and plan was that the second session, the session today, will really talk about policies and practices and guidelines. one thing we learned in the meantime as we planned the sessions is that we all are really in the early stages of starting to use AI, exploring the guidelines and policies and putting them in place. So today's session is a bit of a mix of where we are and sharing with you what organizations are doing or what they're considering doing as we adapt to this AI environment we are with. And AI doesn't have to be generative AI. We really talked about that last time, where you can ask AI questions and it's going to give you reports and lesson plans and different ideas for how you may want to run your sessions or how you can cook a meal for dinner. But really, AI is really making its way into a lot of the tools we use every day. So we are going to touch on that as well today. And we also know that learners are starting to use AI, and it's important to kind of keep that in mind. So some of the conversations today will touch on that. Organizations are using AI, or instructors are starting to use AI. So where are we? Where should we know what are organizations doing around that? We also know that many organizations reach out to our ministry for guidance. For example, Toronto District School Board sent a letter asking for some tips and resources and kind of guidance on how to go about that. We haven't heard back yet if they got any response, but we are seeing this action, this movement, this flow that's happening. And in conversations with instructors, we are also noticing how it impacts some of the environments we are with. So for example, just a few weeks ago, I had a conversation with an instructor who was really disappointed that her learner used AI on an assessment that they were supposed to do. But when we got into a conversation, if she talked to the learner about AI, not using AI, if there were any guidelines to help the learner understand what's allowed, what's not allowed, it turned out that they just didn't. They didn't even think about doing that. And then basically ended up with AI-generated assessment from this learner. So we've had back and forth to consider conversations, planning, some guidelines for instructors as well of what do I want my learners to know when it comes to using AI and why, for assessment purposes, maybe that's not the best option. We also hear on the media how AI is changing school environments, classes, how a lot of students are using AI to generate reports. And sometimes there's plagiarism happening as well. So I did include a link in the slide to show you that in the States, there's actually a court case where parents are suing a school because their child used AI to generate a report or assignment and was told that they plagiarized or didn't follow the rules. But in the end, there were no rules to follow. At least that's what the parents say, that the school didn't set the guidelines in place. The teacher didn't have the policy explained or what they expect from the learner as well. And that basically is now driving this conversation and changing the life of the student who now has to fight for better marks, removing the flag from their record that they were using AI. And finally, just the other reverse of it, I had a chance to meet a student who was accused of plagiarism and they didn't plagiarize. But the teacher assumed or used the tools for plagiarism and the system said it was AI generated. And now the student is fighting to prove that they were not using AI in their practice. So there's so much happening in our world and outside of our world of LBS that's making changes or bringing in changes for us as well. So with that quick introduction, I want to make sure that we know where you are when it comes to using AI. So you know me, I use Slido tools to get a bit of feedback from you. So if you have a chance, if you have your phone with you, just scan the QR code. It will take you to our survey today. If you do not have the phone, you can put the website address slido.com into your browser, put in the code there, and you will be able to answer the question, does your organization have AI guidelines or policy or tips in place? And if you don't, that's totally okay. It's just to kind of get a sense, a pulse of where we are as a group today as we talk about AI. Now, some of you will say yes or no. It's open-ended questions, so feel free to put sentences in, and we'll see how that goes as well. So in the top right corner of the presentation, you're going to see that we have the numbers of participants joining and responding to the question. So I'll just kind of watch to see how many of you had the chance to respond. We have around 50 participants with us, so I'm hoping many of you will participate. This is also going to help us in driving the conversation forward. And as I can see, some of you are drafting the policies. Many of you are not there yet. You're trying. I can assure you that you're not alone. even when we were planning for our guests to join us today, we did have responses from organizations saying, we are planning, we are not sure we want to talk about it yet, so we are not going to join as guests this time. But this, there's a momentum, and that momentum is happening. So we want to make sure that we share as much as we can and discuss as much as we can with you as well. Okay. General directions to staff to encourage them to consider AI tools to help make their work more efficient. Privacy and confidentiality is important. That's fantastic. So I'm just going to quickly scroll to let you know, and you can see all the responses. So we don't have a policy in place. I'm trying to see if there is one that actually says yes. Draft from proposed, draft from proposed. So there's one or two that say yes, which is fantastic. But for the rest of us who are really trying to struggling with setting up policies or guidelines or understanding what we need to even consider, this is the session today. This is where we want to start the conversation and explore tools with you. If you have more tools, feel free to post them in our chat. We are hoping to assemble a collection or list and share with others as well. Okay. So with that in mind, we asked our guest presenters some questions. So you're going to see them introducing themselves because really we want you to know who they are and they're from. But then we posed a lot of questions. Is your program open to using AI? How do you use it? Have you discussed the ethical aspects of AI with your team? A lot of questions around AI. Do you have a written policy or guidelines in place? And what do you expect from your learners, staff, colleagues when it comes to AI? Maybe it's around building the prompts that they're using or even referencing AI when it comes to generating content. So a lot of questions for our guests. We also asked them to share some of the examples. So you're going to see some examples from our guests as well, and then what tips and resources they will be willing to share with us. Okay, and I'm not going to take much more time because we want to jump in. We are going to start with AlphaPlus. We broke it down into two sort of presentations. One will be from Alan, our executive director, talking about policies. And Alan is going to give us an example of where we are as an organization. And then we are going to talk to Ghislaine and Tracy about how we may want to talk about policies and guidelines with our learners and maybe build those together with our colleagues, with our learners, with our students as well. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Alan first. And Alan, just let me know when you want me to switch the slides. Oh, and make sure that you're unmuted.
I had to find myself on the screen. Thanks, Monica.
No problem.
Yes, when Monica asked me to talk about how I'm using AI and the impact that how I'm using it affects our policy, I thought of this very old New Yorker cartoon. Monica, if you can click to the next one, because I think the caption is bigger.
Yes.
So the caption is "Give me more angels and make them gladder to see me," was the first thing that occurred to me. Sort of at my age and sort of with my experience in my relatively straightforward work environment, the way I've been using generative AI hasn't yet exposed me directly to the darker sides. My perspective is really undeniably privileged. My use of AI is highly reactive. It's driven by the constant pressure at work to deliver more. I'm likely using AI exactly in the way teachers discourage their students from using it. I admit to being lazy at times, avoiding original thinking and effort. I also lack experience with academic or legal discourse, so I haven't developed those skills and use AI to help me in those areas. That said, I still recognize and appreciate thoughtfulness and accurate detail in writing, just because of my experience, so I can sort of judge what AI is telling me. Some people argue that AI removes personality from writing, reducing its bland, bureaucratic language. But for my purposes in professional and business documents, that's often exactly what I need. I'm not trying to create literature. I'm simply trying to communicate effectively in a workplace context. I also understand that some of the objections to the use of generative AI can sometimes feel judgmental and sort of ableist at times. And it's important to approach these concerns thoughtfully, as the way that people use AI vary greatly, depending on their needs and their goals. Monica, if you could just go to the next slide. Oh, you're there. Okay, sorry. It's me who's not there. Okay. So how do I use it? I use it to improve my own writing and communication. I use it to improve the organization's communications. I use it to generate ideas, analysis, answer questions, provide examples, and new content. I'm aware of my own shortcomings and bad habits when it comes to writing, so AI has helped me, overcome a lot of my handicaps. Um, Despite my own handicaps, I need to communicate in writing on a daily basis as part of my work. I've been using ChatGPT for about a year to assist me with this. As a result, I think perhaps I'm relying less on staff to review and correct my letters and reports. My needs often overlap, and highlighting the practical benefit of these tools in my day-to-day work. Monica, if you go to the next slide.
Mhm.
So I would say that just in terms of improving my own writing and communication, I use ChatGPT and iterative lots of prompts. And I ask it to continually review, revise, and improve clarity and flow. I asked it to state arguments in clear and plain language, asking it to simplify the language often. Review and suggest alternative arguments or points of view, asking it, how could you improve this argument? How could you um, state my case more strongly? Um, I ask it to provide critical perspective, almost as a test reader, as I often use the staff to do. Um, what would AI understand as the key points of something that I've written? What could be misinterpreted or misunderstood from what I've written? Is whatever I'm stating clearly stated? I ask it often to adjust the tone. I sometimes can get angry, can sometimes get angry in my writing, and it's helpful to get AI to take some of that out when it's appropriate. Um, and it's also very helpful with things like conciseness. So if I'm looking at trying to report something to the ministry in 10,000 characters, I can quite quickly figure out how many characters I've got, and it's a more advanced word and character count than what you get in Word. Um, I take a lot of time to sort of go through and assume that the first result I'm getting is not correct. It's like a search engine. The first result isn't going to be, it's not really like a search engine. The top ranking site isn't necessarily the best one that you're going to get. It really is a conversation that you're having with ChatGPT, and that's how I've treated it. Improving the organization's communications. Often I'm required to synthesize text from several staff sources to a coherent, consistent product. So we've got the 5 team members. We all have to write a portion of a report, and I want it to sound like it's in the same voice. And ChatGPT is very good at doing that. I mean, it's great at crafting marketing and marketing text and copy. It's quite clever and thinks of nice subject lines and nice catchy phrases, which is great. It's good to testing copy is good too. Um, and we don't use it for translation. We haven't, I mean, I can use it to sort of translate something for my own purposes, but for publication and communications, we wouldn't use it for translation. Yeah. Next slide, Monica. Okay. To generate ideas and analysis, I treat generative AI sort of like I would consultants. Really, like if you hired a consultant to do something. Um, Often in the 20 years, I'm often saying, did you Google it when someone needs help with an on-screen error message or a malfunction? And now I find AI to be a better starting point for this type of question. So when you get an error message or when something happens, rather than suggesting that people Google it, I suggest that they try putting it into ChatGPT. AI provides quicker, more focused responses and can uncover answers that might be more deeply buried in a company or a business website. It's also a valuable tool to verify whether something is legitimate. And often I've asked, is this a real thing? Do people really do that? Is that really an idea that people have? Sometimes new ideas, rules, or actions are proposed that seem poorly planned or lack common sense. People come forward, pose things that I think that really can't be how that's done. Must be a better way of doing that than that. And ChatGPT is very good at outlining sort of the steps and things that would be required for a project or a task. And often you can feed that back to the original source and say, no, if you really wanted to do a robust job of that project, here's how you might go about doing it. Yeah, I mean, often people um, put forward proposals missing critical steps, relying on untested assumptions, or overlooking potential impacts and consequences of the work. And I found ChatGPT to be very good about that kind of thing, asking it what could go wrong, what could happen if, what could be the unintended consequences of doing this. And that's one way I've used ChatGPT. Um, and I found it very useful to quickly identify weaknesses as well in ideas. It's provided a way of challenging weak thinking or poor planning by highlighting gaps in testing assumptions. As Bob Glass from the CSC often says with LBS improvements, be careful what you wish for. And I think ChatGPT offers an opportunity to sort of just find out what might actually happen if you got what you wished for in some cases. Generative AI can offer insights into potential outcomes of getting exactly what you wish for and helping to anticipate unintended consequences. Monica, next slide. Yeah, I sort of use it as a task rabbit. And the only example I could think of, which Christine Vincent Johnson and I worked on, we gave ChatGPT the URLs for all of the LBS websites. So we have a database that has all the websites of the LBS programs. And we wanted to find out which of those programs had offered a GED preparation, and asked it to go out and look at all those websites and find out which of them mentioned GED prep and excerpt what they say on their website about their GED prep and give us back a report. So rather than having a staff person go out and have to look at each website and peck through them, ChatGPT acted like a little task rabbit and did those things for us. So those are the primary ways that we've used it, or I've used it. And then in terms of, next slide, Monica, why a policy? It hadn't been a burning issue for me as the ED that we didn't have an AI policy. There was some concern from some staff about it, but there hadn't really been a lot of concern about misuse or bad use of AI so far. But some staff did have concerns, and this was their concerns, or these three things were their concerns. Clarifying what they're allowed to be able to do. So it wasn't clear what someone could do or couldn't do. I basically hadn't thought that there was any concern. And also the second one was to develop, since we are talking to programs quite often about what they do, we needed to have a policy to use and model our own policy. That was a reason to develop our own. And also we wanted to use the development of the policy as a way of sort of surfacing different staff perspectives on AI and its use. And so those were the three reasons why we wanted to come up with a policy. Next slide, Monica. And what I did is I basically used AI to draft a policy. I first started off by asking it to give me a very short policy that was not restrictive for a nonprofit organization using AI. And then it gave me one version. Then I asked it to go back and come up with another version that differentiated between generating new content and improving writing and content the way I use it. And then I asked it to show me examples of similar policies from real organizations, and it gave me 5 organizations, and it gave me a couple of examples of organizations that had templates. I took the introductory paragraph from 2 of them, asked it to combine them into one. I sort of went in and revised one of the templates that had been provided. I asked it to differentiate the policy statement from the responsibility section, which is a way that we in AlphaPlus have tended to write policies in our own place. And then I asked it to suggest and describe some changes from the policy that could make it clearer. And it gave me specific examples of how to simplify the language, how to shorten the sentences, how to provide clear instructions on responsibilities, how to approve the structure with subsections and bullet points. It suggested adding more examples, removing repetition, and clarifying the environmental considerations. And then I just asked it to implement those changes, and it came up with a policy for me. The next slide, Monica. So that's there. That's what the policy is. A little tweak here and there. It's linked there. You can copy it and download it, use it however you'd like to. But it basically gives us a policy statement, sets out responsibilities for the employee, sets out responsibility for management, sets out some procedures, and that was it. We don't have a lot of, it's not very restrictive. Next slide, Monica. So another thing I did just when Monica was asking me about this, I just looked for asked ChatGPT for a comprehensive list of the areas that could be included in an organizational use of AI policy with explanatory bullet points under each item. And it gave me a list of 32 items, and the link is there to the 32 items. And if I were developing this from scratch, I'd probably look through those 32 items and say, that one's applicable to my organization. This one isn't applicable to my organization. I like that one, but it should be combined with that one. So I'd start with that as a sort of generative kind of idea of 32 items. Then I asked it to look at specific ideas around policies that might relate to an educational organization. It gave me another 17 items, so there would be something else to consider. So that's just a sort of ballpark of the kinds of things that you could, in your organization, decide to include in your policy. But we didn't include a lot of them, like we don't restricting which tools you can use and things like that. We don't deal with learner data. We don't deal with a great deal of confidential data. We don't deal with a lot of intellectual property of our own. So there are a lot of areas that a lot of organizations would have concerns about that we don't have as an organization, which is, we're lucky in that case. I think that's all I had to say, Monica, about how we got to having a policy, but I think you wanted to keep questions until the end of the three of us, right?
Actually, no, if that's okay, there's one question coming in the chat. Is
Sure.
AlphaPlus using the free or paid version of ChatGPT? And is the paid version worth having as a nonprofit?
I have the paid version. The staff are using the free version if they're using it at all. And there are certainly other tools, which I haven't really explored that much, of where you can basically get this access to the paid version, essentially the content, through other platforms. But I haven't bothered to try to figure it all out. But if you were looking for something, I think I asked on the free version once some legislative question, and it told me that basically it didn't have data after a certain date, so any new legislation wouldn't have been included in its analysis. So there are some disadvantages if you're looking for very timely information. I don't think it would make much difference if you're just trying to polish a sentence. It's probably not going to make that much difference.
Yeah. So thank you, Alan, for sharing with us. One of the reasons we wanted to show you the policies, and really, Alan used AI to create it. You know, we can polish, we can add more, we can review it as a team, but at least we have a starting point. So a lot of organizations that are asking us for policies, or do we have an example? This is what Alan did. This is where we are right now. So we hope, you know, again, may not apply to some of your specific needs if you have learners, if you have other requirements that you may need to follow, but at least you're seeing how we went about that, and hopefully I will give you some ideas as well. But keep those questions coming. We can always answer them after the session or through the email as well. We'll keep them in the chat so we can answer them. Alan will now be free if there's more questions, so he can answer in the chat as well. In the meantime, we're going to jump to Ghislaine and Tracy, my colleagues from AlphaPlus. We have been working together for a while. So I think, Ghislaine, is that okay if I give you controls?
Yes, that's
Perfect.
good. Yeah.
Ooh, I just have to find you in this long list of our participants. Okay. All right. It should work now for you.
Yes, I got the control. Thank you. And I guess I'm gonna let my colleague Tracy go ahead and start.
Okay, you can go to the next slide, Gillian.
I thought I had control, but you're gonna boss me around.
Sorry, I've got this little coffee. Yeah, sorry.
No, sorry, there
Okay.
was somebody else just kind of joining in, unmuted.
Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, so Gillian and we're going to focus less on the organizational side of it and more on classroom applications. Our idea about this sort of came from, I know some of you have come to the AI workshops that are presented by somebody called Sean McCusker from EdTech Teacher. And it was in one of those workshops where somebody asked this question in the chat, and he talked about how he showed a learner how to use AI to do something. And then the learner was using AI for everything, and he felt that that was kind of interfering with the learning process in some way. And he was like, so how do I get that learner to stop And yeah, Ghislaine, the next slide. And the facilitator, Sean, suggested that as with other policies that people create in classrooms to work with learners, that it might be a good idea to work with the learner, either as an individual learner, if you work one-to-one, or a group of learners, to create the guidelines that would work in that specific context with, for that class, for that course, for that group of learners. And we thought that made sense because it's something that literacy practitioners do with learners. They make guidelines for all different parts of classroom activities and behaviors, and that they're used to sort of facilitating a process like that. Okay, next slide, please. But we wondered, unlike some of the other arenas where people are creating guidelines with learners, if people felt like they knew enough about AI to sit down with learners and have those conversations and to facilitate that process. We're all kind of in this place where we're just kind of learning about the capacities of AI. There's been a lot of sort of academic looking at AI in education, but how that information is filtering into practice is different in different places. So we were asking ourselves, what should we be thinking about if we're going to work with the practitioners we work with on how to develop these kinds of policies? What are some of the things that we should be thinking about? So just through our work, we've come up with some ideas. So we're going to share those ideas with you, the questions that we've been hearing. And then at the end of it, we're going to ask you, like, what are we missing? So as you listen to us, if you notice that we're missing a big thing that you've been thinking about, please put it in the chat. Okay, Glenn. Okay, so our first question was sort of, we were thinking about, should guidelines be based on a concept of mutual accountability? So should they include responsibilities for instructors and learners? So around, and for instructors, maybe around thinking around transparency, around when are you using AI and what are you using it to do? And there's some, I don't know if anybody in literacy is really using AI to do assessments and feedback, but if you were thinking of that, how would you communicate that with learners? Okay, it's just as a couple of examples. Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, I just got a bit lost in my slides there. So and one of the concerns that people might have would be around how do you create a safe space for learning. I think that's important to a lot of practitioners. It's something they think about quite a bit. And certainly something they talk about quite a bit when we work with them. And sometimes people use this analogy of the calculator to talk about AI. And I've been in a few workshops where people have said that, and it's kind of irritated me a little bit, or it's kind of set me on edge a little bit, because I feel AI is so different than a calculator, and that usually if you put your information into the calculator correctly, if 10 people do it, they all get the same answer. Whereas with AI, we could get different answers depending on lots of different things. And usually, or I've never heard of a calculator showing information that has bias in it, except for maybe the normal bias of mathematics. I don't know. But there's no bias. They're not going to hear any discriminatory language as they're using a calculator. And that can happen in AI. So how do we have learners use those resources, but not experience those things while they're learning? And what are our responsibilities around that? Okay, Gillian. The other thing we've been talking about, and Alan touched a little bit on this when he was talking about how AI can strengthen your writing, but literacy learners in some courses, some programs are thinking about, or they're instructors are thinking about how do we strengthen their own voice. So what's the balance between using AI to assist your writing and developing your own voice as a writer in a literacy program? So we've been thinking about that question. And and one of the things I think that comes up with this is that AI can maybe make us think about a level of perfection that doesn't that might shut down some creativity, right? So how can we um, be striving for other things besides the perfect piece of writing? But as what's the role of failure and making mistakes in learning, and so how do we balance that with our use of AI? Okay, Gillian.
I think I can jump in from here, Tracy. So another thing that we were think that we heard of and we were thinking about is again around critical thinking. How can learner develop reading and research skills? It seems that there's a big jump because of if a learner was to use AI to search for information. AI is known to hallucinate sometimes. Some tools don't provide the sources of where the information is coming from. So there's this other level of, it was already there when learners were navigating the web to learn how to identify good information from information that might be not be accurate. But with AI, it's sort of it's a bigger deal. So how can we apply the principles of analyzing, evaluating information online to AI when learners are building their reading skills and their research skills? So it's one other question that there's some thinking that needs to be done around that. And again, it's a lot of critical thinking that comes into play. And I should have control. Sorry, I can't move to the next slide. Did it work? Yes. The other thing that we were thinking about is around citizenship and rights. Um, what are the responsibilities of instructors to inform learners about social environmental impacts of using AI? There's, this other layer. AI is known to be using a lot of energy, all those servers that are working to provide us with answers, with images, do use a lot of energy. What are we supposed to do with this? How are we to communicate that to learner? Do we communicate that to learners? There's some, reflection to do around that, and also the social impact, the biases that are present in AI. How do we make learners aware of that, and where do we go? So that's another question that has come up. So if learners are going to use AI, and if as a teacher you're gonna try to talk to learners, considering all that comes into play, how can learners use AI ethically and responsibly, and in doing so expand their learning, enhance their learning? Um, so we are looking at this question and asking practitioners what they are thinking, seeing, and experiencing. I think, did I pass the framework, Tracy? Did I jump? Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, you're coming to it.
I'm coming to it. Okay, thanks. I got lost. So as we were doing a little bit of research, Tracy and I found this. It's a guide that was created by a group of teachers. Unfortunately, it's in French, but we did find visual that presents the content of the framework, which we did translate, that helps us maybe have a conversation with ourselves as an instructor and a conversation maybe with learners. So this is um, the sort of framework that we translated. So as you can see from left to right, it's sort of a continuum. And on top you have educators, and at the bottom you have learners, and what each of them can do with AI. And it's not a question of trying to get to the other end. It's more or less, where do you situate yourself? Where are you comfortable being? And maybe moving back and forth on that continuum. And the different parts of this can maybe help you have a conversation with learners. If you're going to use AI only for brainstorming as an educator, then maybe you want to give learners, you want to tell your learners that you're doing that. And then maybe you want to teach your learners about issues surrounding AI, but you're not ready yet to show them how to use it for various tasks. Or maybe you want to move a little further, or maybe your learner is going to ask you to support them in moving a little further, and maybe using AI as a learning support, as a research support. So we thought of this as a good place to have a conversation and to sort of have an idea of a bigger picture and situate yourself within it. And as I don't know if you want to speak to the uh, intelligent augmentation, Tracy had the good. I don't know if you want to give a bit of context to that, Tracy.
Yeah, it was a late addition to the slide because I was listening to a podcast sort of about the history of AI, and they were talking about the evolution of the personal computer was around intelligence augmentation. And so rather than replacing human intelligence with machine learning, it was about how do we enhance our own intelligence by using machines and software and that kind of thing. And I just thought it was an interesting thing to think about. And I think, listening to Alan's comments and other comments that we've heard in the previous showcase where people were talking about how they're using AI in programs, and other conversations we've had with practitioners, that it seems that in our field, our interest in using AI really centers around how can we use it to augment our own intelligence most of the time, especially on the learning side. On the kind of program administration side, a lot of people are looking for something to replace all that kind of time consuming and less interesting parts of the work. But anyway, I just thought it was an interesting way to think about it in terms of as an augmentation tool rather than a replacement tool.
And if I can just add, to go back to the framework, in doing certain things, you might place yourself somewhere along that line, but in other things, you might place yourself elsewhere. So it's not like you're doing one thing. And same for learners, depending on the task they're trying to do, they might move around that continuum.
So when we think about this, it might seem like a lot. When we were making the slides, we were like, oh, that's a lot. That's a lot to think about. So, and I think we're in that place where none of us have all the answers right now. But we do have good tools in our field. We have years of experience working with adult learning principles. And I think, we can apply them ethically to this field. This is a little just to mention that as we were thinking through all of this, we decided that we would offer some workshops on creating classroom AI policies, or working with learner kind of AI policies, and that'll be coming up in January. And these are the points on the in that green box there are the points that we sent to the facilitator of the workshop. And these are the kinds of things we asked the facilitator to focus on in the workshop. So the ethical and purposeful uses of AI in education, uh, how to plan the areas where AI will be used by educators and by learners, and sort of tips and guidelines. Um, and so what we're going to ask you right now is, based on what we've said so far and this list that we're offering to the facilitator, are there any other things that you would like to see covered in an AlphaPlus workshop around developing policy? So I'm going to ask people, if anybody wants to speak out, of course you can, but if you want to add things into the chat.
There are actually some interesting comments in the chat about, how do we talk even to our colleagues sometimes, or how do we talk to somebody who has decided AI is a bad thing, it's dangerous, or how do we approach decision or the blurriness, if I repeat it correctly, between images that are, AI generated? Do we allow them? Don't we allow them? What's the process? How can we really go about that? And I think there's so many questions for many of us. We may not have all of them today, but I think it's good to list those as you're going through the chat and bringing them up, because I think it helps us to better understand some of your needs. And we may not have all the answers, but at least it's good to discuss it. And I mentioned in the chat that we as a team at AlphaPlus have a lot of conversations about AI. And then, even from a personal perspective, I think we have different perspectives, which is a good thing. We learn from each other. What do you think about that? Is it allowed? Would you do it? Would you use it? It's good to have those perspectives and kind of make decisions as we go individually but also as a team. Sorry,
That's great.
Tracy.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. Yeah, I know, and I noticed somebody also put in the chat. I'm trying not to get distracted by the chat while I'm presenting, but I did notice that somebody put in the question too about how does AI, how do we talk to learners about how AI uses our own intellectual property to learn from. And I think that's something that we should be transparent about. So anytime you put information into AI, it will use the information that you've put into an AI tool. It will use that information to learn from. So
Yeah.
while you're using it, you're training it. So, and that's something to think about as well, right? So how much, I think, how much do you want to be involved in that process? I think that should be a choice.
Mhm.
And I think we had one more slide.
Yeah, if I can just make a comment from
Mhm.
the chat. Thanks, Monica, for summarizing. Um, I think a lot of people have a lot of questions and probably feel some discomfort because they don't have the answers. But I just want to reassure people, sort of a year ago, we didn't have these questions yet. We didn't know AI well enough to have the questions. So we're moving forward. Like we have the questions and together we're going to find the answers. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Gillian. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. Like last year, this wasn't even a thing, right? So, I think we've actually moved forward amazingly rapidly as a field and as individuals in that field. You see people really, thinking about this technology in really creative ways and really interesting ways. So, I think we're doing great. And the other thing that and we can see people are doing this in the chat already, but I'm going to encourage you to keep doing that as you think of things as we're going through, and we'll definitely be saving the chat and using it. Ghislaine and I are sort of in the early planning stages for thinking about something for the spring where we kind of focus a little bit on the sort of ethical rights and responsibilities side of using AI, and looking at some uh, lessons and curricula that especially Ghislaine has found around how do we talk to learners about AI. So if you noticed in the framework, the second step for learners was learning about the issue. So learning about what is AI, what does it do, what does generative AI do, where is it in my life already, how can I use it to enhance and expand learning, those kinds of questions. So if you have any big questions, I can see there's lots of big questions coming in. Please add them to the chat, and that will help us with our planning.
Perfect.
Did you have anything else to add, Ghislaine?
No, apart from Tracy and I had a list of resources. They were
Oh,
varied
sorry.
resources on the topics that we covered today. Just, reading. But Sorry, Monica, I didn't think you had them. That's great. So after when you leave, you can those are just there's a lot out there. There's a lot. It's just a few links we thought that could be interesting for getting some information, asking more questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Gillian and Tracy. Really lots of information to process, but lots of good questions to consider as well. So I thank you to you, all three of you, Alan, Gillian, and Tracy, for taking the time to share. I'm sure the links will be very useful. As I said in the chat, we do have a lot of conversations about this, and I don't think it will stop. I think it will kind of pick up because again, those things are changing all the time. The first time somebody asked about AI presentations, we were like, okay, let us prepare. And then 2 weeks later, we had to adjust because there was so much new information, new tools and resources coming in, and it continues. It continues happening as well. So
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I just wanted
yeah,
to say I see Monica's put our contact information in
yes.
the chat. So definitely put your ideas in the chat. And if you walk away from this showcase and think of something later, please get in touch with us. If we don't have answers, we definitely want to hear your questions so we can start including those questions in the work that we're doing. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And then we have a question from Simone. I know this says it says Muhammad Ali, but it's Simone on the in the video. So go ahead, Simone.
And just making sure, can the interpreter see me?
Now. Yep, thank you.
I'll pin you. Yep.
Oh, good. Everyone can see me? The interpreter can, yep. I'm here from Ottawa, and been hearing a lot about EI. It's been the buzzword of the times, right? And obviously there's some concerns around safety. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. I'm just getting into the whole concept of AI. I think there's one thing that I was using Chat GPT that I kind of used a little bit, thought it was very interesting. But in terms of like more formally, I haven't yet used it. And I'm just wondering about um, the impact, or can it be adapted for certain disabilities in terms of equal access, like for people who are deaf, for example?
Anyone wants to answer the question?
I can give a stab at it in the sense of saying I don't really know. Right? So it's something that we're looking at, and actually we had the question. We've seen some stuff for people with visual impairments, ways that AI can help them. And we actually were talking yesterday, and we were like, oh, like we've seen that, but are there things for the deaf community that would make life easier, AI enhancements that would make life easier. So we're sort of looking at that. And then our other question is around AI in a classroom where people are working with hearing impaired students. So we don't really have the answers, but it's definitely a question that's on our radar. And last week there was a presentation. We're doing a series 3 presentations about accessibility, and the second one was about AI and accessibility is how AI can make things more accessible for people. So we can send you, I think Monica has your contact information. We can send you, I don't think you were there, so we could send you the slides and information that was in there as well. But yeah, it's so I know it's not answering your question, but we have the same question as you, and we're doing some research and trying to figure some things out. And as soon as we learn things, we'll be sharing them with the field.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And I can see Alan
That's
has raised
great.
his
Thank
hand
you.
too. Go ahead,
Monica,
Alan.
just a question for the interpreters, actually. Over the years, people have talked about ASL grammar and how the grammar in American Sign Language is very different than the grammar in English. And I wondered if ChatGPT or a generative AI tool could convert English grammar into deaf grammar. We've used it sometimes for transcripts when we're asking an interpreter to assign a script. I wonder if would it be that, might it be possible?
I'm not thinking so. Simone's saying that, a direct translation or transcription from English to ASL, I don't think would be possible, as grammar is not written form. It's seen on the face. There's just lots of different parameters that go along with a visual language that, body language, movement, space, all of those things that I don't think could be translated equally, where if you look at it, English or spoken language, it's more linear. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
don't think
thanks.
so, though.
Yeah, but we'll definitely, try to see and monitor and pull some resources, whatever we can find. We always want to learn and share from each other. So very good question, Simone. Thank you. I took a note so that we don't forget about that as well. Thank you. Okay, time is not our friend, so I'm going to take us to the next guest, and that's Jacqueline from Good Learning Anywhere, Sue Hudson Literacy Council. And just give me 1 second. I'm going to give Jacqueline some controls. That way she will be able to use the slides in the way she wants. Here you go, Jacqueline.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, excuse me 1 second. All right. Yes, it's that time of year. I'm getting a cold apparently. So I can hear it in my voice when I started to talk there. But yeah, that's a great question that you all were talking about recently with regards to accessibility, because when it comes to online options, that is something that we have been seeing more and more of, is the accessibility component of online courses, and what can AI do to help enhance that and enhance the learner's experience depending on their needs. So what I'm actually going to be talking about today is some pieces, I should say some platforms that we are using within Good Learning Anywhere, and the updates that are happening surrounding AI, and some of the excitement that we're seeing, and why we are going to be jumping into getting some AI policies down pat and whatnot as well. So thank you, Monica. I do see the
Controls.
perfect. Yes, it's working. All right. So like I said, I'm going to quickly do an introduction about Good Learning Anywhere. And we're going to talk about, I don't know if you've heard of it before, but a tool called InStage, and some of the updates that are happening surrounding AI and the generative options that are new to InStage. We have Moodle as well that we and there are some AI integration and plugin tools that are coming available as well, if not already. Then we're going to talk briefly about some AI principles and ethical considerations that we have thought of, or that we have been kind of looking at and considering. However, I do want to say we are still at the very beginning stages. These tools are still really new to us. We don't even have the up-to-date Moodle yet. These are just things that happened within the past month. So more of just a heads up for anyone. And yeah, and then we'll talk about our next steps. So my name is Jacqueline Edmondson. I have been an adult educator for almost 7 years. I currently reside in North Bay, Ontario, but I bounce around depending on my husband's job. I am the Moodle lead and an instructional designer with Good Learning Anywhere. And I am working on getting my Master's of Education, and it's really interesting because AI is a huge topic within getting my master's right now, within anything education related. So so it's a pleasure to be here to be able to present. So in regards to Good Learning Anywhere, we are a free online distance learning program that is part of Sue Hudson Literacy Council. We offer a lot of different courses that are employment focused, education focused, independence focused. We have a lot of cultural courses as well because we are the lead e-channel service provider for the Indigenous stream. So we do have multiple platforms that we use, but today I'm going to only focus on the two that we mostly use. Or that I guess I should say that mostly use AI. Okay, so with the AI possibilities, you may have heard some of these in the past because not all of them are completely new, but they're becoming more and more popular. So we have the virtual tutors and chatbots that use AI. There's content generation, which we've talked a lot about in today's presentation, the adaptive and predictive tools, and enhanced accessibility and more. So I will talk a little bit about InStage. So InStage is what we currently use to, and I see it's a little cut off there. My apologies about that. But we use this tool to try and support learners who are preparing for interviewing. So although there's more than that, you can practice any kind of communication skills, whether it be presenting, like if you're preparing for a presentation, or if someone's getting into some sort of sales, there's a B2B, so business to business sales option that you can use to practice. But our focus at Good Learning Anywhere, at least right now, since it's still a relatively new tool to us, is the actual interview portion of it. Because what learners can do is they can have access to InStage. They can verbally say, answer different interview questions. They can see the questions being written, but they also can hear it through their headsets or their speaker system, and then they can answer back to an avatar. And it's really neat to see. It's something you definitely have to test out to get the full experience. But essentially, it's an area where you can practice interviewing and or any kind of communication skills without any judgment. And you get that feedback immediately afterwards. It gives you suggestions. You can listen back to yourself and what you said, and then it gives you specific suggestions on how you can improve on it. The nice thing too is you can do generalized interviews where you just say, I want to be a customer service representative. Or you can actually find a specific job ad and use that for the interview, which is pretty neat. So all of this information is kept confidential and private. But what we do is we use it in a way that our learners take different employment preparation courses, and we use it as the next step. So it helps prepare them to get to that point. So the newest tools with this, so if you've heard of InStage before, you may not have heard of this part. So this is where the generative AI comes into play. So there is a new resume and cover letter assist option. Now, InStage is still doing the final touches to it, so it may not be available to everyone as of yet. We were lucky to get a trial beforehand to test it out. But the resume and cover letter assist options allow learners to upload their resumes and their cover letters to not only get more personalized interview questions if they would like, but also it provides an option to assist with providing feedback on the resumes and those cover letters and giving suggestions on how you could rewrite it, maybe some items you might want to, like add on to it or enhance. And it gives you that feedback as well as some scores that you can actually regenerate after you're done and get a higher percentage. So the key thing though with this is it is using generative AI. And so it is very useful, But this is where we need to dive more into those policies and ensuring that both educators and learners understand the importance of the ethics surrounding AI, because there is the hallucinate there, there are hallucinations. So if they use something like this, they need to understand, if it's going to add something maybe that they didn't do or whatnot. And you want to be 100% honest when you're creating these. So that's one of the reasons why we're like, okay, we need to dive into AI policies that much more. Because this is a great tool as long as you know how to use it properly. So as I mentioned, we do have a couple of job preparation courses that in stages the next step to. So I'm going to actually dive more into Moodle now, because both of those courses are offered through our Moodle platform, and we have some changes in Moodle that that will be happening at some point that we're going to explore further as we continue. So for those of you who may not know, Moodle is a nice location where you can go, a learning management system where you can go and you can have courses, you can develop them, you can offer them to the learners, and they can have them either, we have it as both synchronous and asynchronous options. So both live classes and independent courses are offered through our Moodle platform. So I want to think about what is the future of Moodle and AI. Well, I thought I would ask AI to see what they thought. I think it was Microsoft Copilot thought of the future of Moodle and AI, and I said within the next 5 to 10 years. And this is an image that it came up with. And to be honest, I wasn't very surprised to see something like this because of all the advancements that are happening. And when it comes to, virtual reality, augmented reality, all of these different options that use artificial intelligence, these are options that are, happening right now, and we're going to likely see come in the near future. We've already been seeing generative AI, which has now been integrated into the Moodle 4.5 platform. So that's the newest version of Moodle that just happened within the last month. We don't have access to this version yet, but this is another reason why these questions are really important to us within eChannel. So there's the integration of AI tools, which offer a couple of different exciting features. So there's the activity summarization feature. So let's say you have an activity that might be very wordy, it might have a lot of content, and some learners, maybe they read it through and it just doesn't quite click, or whatever the reason may be, they want to summarize it to get a better understanding. And it could even be for their own note taking, whatever. That option is going to be available within the newest integration of Moodle. And it will just be a button that learners can click. That is a possibility. Then we also have the newest integration for content generation. So this one is very similar to how people would use ChatGPT, Copilot, all that kind of thing. However, it is integrated right into Moodle, and you would use your subscription of, ChatGPT, for example, and it will, right in Moodle, you can have it generate content for development and whatnot. So we would want to see it more as what Alan was talking about, where it's supporting, content we already have and maybe helping with, rewording it using that plain language, making sure that, our grammar, punctuation, everything looks good. But this is where it's important for even staff and developers is we need to ensure that they know what are the rights and wrongs when it comes to that content generator within our online system. And then I did add a couple of different AI plugins that are available in Moodle currently that we have considered if we're going to be using AI for the integration tools. We may even look into these. Still a topic of discussion, but there are options for like chatbots within Moodle, as well as text to questions generators, which uses AI to support the actual quiz questions that are being developed.
And just as Jacqueline is
Oh,
switching, I
yeah.
just wanted to add, sorry, Jacqueline, because I'm also thinking that the reverse of it when and one of the reasons why I love your presentation, because we don't think about the fact that AI is already in the tools we are using.
Yeah.
And we kind of make a decision, I'll go to ChatGPT or Copilot, I'll enter my prompts and I'll work that way, where behind the scenes in many of the tools we are using, it's already there. So our learners, our students are getting exposed to it. And again, that idea of understanding what the prompts mean, what information they're putting in, it's important for us as teachers who are preparing students to go on to further education or even independence fields. You are using tools in your real life that have that AI built in, and we just don't realize.
Yeah, it's very true. Like even Alexa.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm surprised she didn't talk to me. Okay, yeah. So thank you for cutting in there. Yes. It's really important to really consider all of the above because it's something that we may not necessarily realize is happening behind the scenes. And learners are already being, they're using a lot of these tools and whatnot, whether they know it or not. And if they do know it and they're using tools like ChatGPT, for example, do they know how to use it properly? And that's the big thing, right? Both educators and learners. So I did grab this link here from Moodle itself. This is something that we're going to use to try and help drive these next steps with us to figure out what kind of policies that we need within, within online learning and what kind of things should we consider, especially when we do develop courses within Moodle. So these are just some of the key pieces that it talked about within this link. So making it, human-centered, transparency, the configurability surrounding it, data protection is huge, the equality and ethics, and then the education. So there is training available that even Moodle offers too. Some other things that we're considering too is the ethical awareness surrounding artificial intelligence. As we've already discussed a lot today, there's a lot to consider, right? And there's some bias when it comes to AI. We want to make sure everything is fair. There's hallucinations and false information that can be apparent, and that's something we've even experienced, even just testing the some of our tools that are coming available. And then there's the copyright that you don't know where it's coming from unless, like, if you're just grabbing the information directly from ChatGPT, for example, or even one of these integrated tools into Moodle. How do you know it's not something they just pulled from somewhere else? How do you know that it's all correct? All of these different considerations to really think about. And then there's the copyright stars that I have there. That was actually something from Moodle that they had recommended whenever you use something that was generated from AI. They actually recommend using a couple of those stars next to it to just let people know that this is something that you have generated from AI. So just that was a tip that they had given. And then, of course, when it comes to the privacy and data protection, all of the artificial intelligence tools that you use are going to pull information, right? And it's one of those things because they're always learning from humans, right? When it comes to artificial intelligence, whatever you put in, it's going to learn from it. So there's definitely that to take into consideration. But at the same time, there are always going to be different resources that you can look at to know what is being, what information is being gathered and, um, what to really consider when it comes to that. So that was one thing that I really, when I was looking into the in-stage component of the resume and the cover letter, for example, I wanted to make sure that we had a resource that we could share with our learners because it's important that they recognize, what is it that they're putting in, what is actually going to be used, that kind of thing. So, and we actually did reach out to InStage a while ago, and they did update it because it was something that we wanted to make sure was up to date. And I just wanted to say we have a live class that we're offering for learners who are interested in learning about AI. It is currently being revamped, but it will be offered in February if you have any learners who are interested in learning more, if maybe they're just at the beginning stages. Yeah, you're more than welcome to send them our way.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. This is great. I really appreciate it. So much information. I did put that security policy into our chat as a link, just if
perfect.
somebody wants to take a look, because I know Rick and Michael are also talking about some of the guidelines and how they apply to some of the tools. So
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us today, for presenting and making us all aware that our learners are going to e-channel, they're taking online courses, and they're interacting or will be interacting soon with a lot of AI tools as well. So really appreciate that. If there are any questions for Jacqueline, feel free to use the chat. We'll kind of redirect you there so we can give some time to our Contact North presenters. So Rick and Michael, your turn, if I can put it that way. Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Thanks so much, Monica, and thank you on behalf of Michael and I and Sarah for the opportunity to be here today. In the interest of time, because I see it's 4:16 and we're bumping up close on the 4:30, I'm going to not spend a lot of time talking about how Contact North is using AI internally, because I think in many respects, we're probably in the same boat as everyone else around this virtual table. We are using it and experimenting with it and encouraging our staff to use it and to almost challenge us in some respects. So I know personally I use it sometimes in my written work to say, help me simplify something, or will that resonate with an audience? So we're using it very much that way to help to challenge ourselves and ultimately make our work better. Now, what I will do though is I'm going to pass it over to Michael because I think he's really got the content that's probably of most interest to folks around how we're making some tools, we call them personal digital assistants, available externally for both learners and educators to use to help in their daily work and to help improve, the overall learning experience and help faculty and instructors and teachers to really make their work more efficient. So with that, I'm pleased to turn it over to Michael, who is our lead on our personal digital assistants, and he can walk us through what we have available and some of the considerations that we looked at when we were developing these assistants. So with that, Michael, over to you.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you, Monica, and thank you, everyone. As Rick said, Contact North, we offer 4 free AI-powered personal digital assistants. So we'll see on the screen here, 3 of them are learner-focused. We have AI Tutor Pro, which is just that. It's an AI tutor, which can grow and check your knowledge on any topic. We have AI Pathfinder Pro, which acts as a career counselor for any job in any industry in Canada. We have AI Trades Explorer Pro, which acts as a career counselor for the trades strictly in Ontario. And then there's a faculty focus AI tool, which is AI Teaching Assistant Pro. And the primary objective of these is just that, enhance the learning and teaching experiences for the students and for the faculty. So each of these tools has been crafted to meet different educational career needs, but they all share the same commitment to key values that ensure that they're safe, they're accessible, and they're supportive for all users. So I don't want to focus primarily on the policies for each of these AI tools, but I want to expand on the key principles that underpin the tools, which the policies incorporate. So these are, sorry, can you go to the next slide, Monica?
Absolutely.
So these are privacy and confidentiality, security and use by minors, and then equitable and inclusive access. So uh, privacy is at the core of our philosophy, especially when it comes to digital learning tools. And in an era when data privacy concerns are growing, we recognize how essential it is for users to feel confident that their information is protected and is absolutely confidential. So all of our AI tools operate with this high level of confidentiality. That means that all data is kept private. Any queries made within the platform is secure. We do not request or store personal information, nor do we track profile users. There's no logins or personal information that's required. So many online tools require you to create accounts and input these personal details or even link them with other services. Our digital assistants, there's no need for that. You can simply access the resources without sharing your identity, which is especially important for educators and learners who may have privacy concerns or be cautious about online data usage, which is completely valid. And then also the data that's input is not used for any AI training. So we don't use any of this to further train or refine our models. This means that the interactions with these tools stay private and they aren't repurposed for other developments. We respect user data as just that. It's the users, and we want the user to feel confident that what they share stays between them and the tool. And then next is security and use by minors. So that's another top priority for us. We're committed to ensuring a secure user experience for everyone. And many things I'll be referencing here can be found in our privacy policies and use by minor policy available in the footer of each of our tools. So we believe in transparency with our tools and make the policies easily accessible while also providing users with a channel of communication in case they require more information. Our privacy policies cover a range of items such as what data is collected, how Google Analytics data is used, where the data is stored, is it shared with third parties, how is user data protected, how long is it stored, and user rights regarding their data and so on. So first of all, here, all services are hosted on secure servers. So security in the digital world starts with solid foundations. There's no doubt about that. We host our tools on servers with advanced security measures, including encryption and protection against unauthorized access. And we conduct regular security checks and audits and improvements to help us keep them robust and up to date. And then next is regular monitoring and updates and upgrades. So, digital world changes fast. We've seen what's happened with AI in the last year and a half. So we have tactics used to mitigate any cyber threats, to keep them safe, to keep our tools safe, and we monitor them constantly and update them frequently. So users can be rest assured that any potential vulnerabilities are addressed as soon as possible. And then next is use by minors under 18. So while the tools are safe, they are primarily designed for adult learners, educators, and professionals. And younger audiences often have unique needs, and these tools are tailored more for mature audiences. So by focusing on adults, we're able to ensure that the content and the resources and the guidance are relevant and impactful for this group. And then finally, there's equitable and inclusive access. So one of the most exciting parts about our AI digital assistants and our other tools is that, or sorry, all of our tools is that they're designed to be equitable and inclusive. So we believe that education and career tools should be available to everyone, regardless of background, language, or ability. And we make that happen by ensuring that all of our tools are 100% free. So cost should never be a missing high quality digital support where possible. We provide them at no cost, which is part of our commitment to equitable access. So whether you're a student, an educator, a job seeker, these resources are open to you. And then accessibility is a core component. It's not just an afterthought for us, it's part of our foundational design. So This means we consider various user needs from the very start. Regardless of the challenges that someone experiences, we strive to make sure that our tools are usable and effective. So we design with inclusivity in mind, so anyone can engage with these tools comfortably and confidently. And then multilingual support. So not just Canada, but worldwide, our planet is home to a diverse population with multiple languages spoken. So, to meet the needs of as many people as possible, our tools offer multilingual support. So, this ensures that language isn't a barrier to understanding and using the features effectively. Um, Also, learners and educators can interact with these tools in the language that they're most comfortable in, making the experience more inclusive and personalized. And then finally, compatibility with all devices. So whether you're using a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, a desktop computer, the tools are designed to work seamlessly across all platforms. They're not resource intensive. So whether you have an old phone or old computer or a new device, it's going to work for you. So this flexibility allows users to engage with the resources whenever and wherever it's convenient with them, making it easier for people on the go or educators or students who are on the move, and who may only have access to certain devices. So, just to sum this all up, it's important to note that these values are embedded in each of our tools. So AI Teaching Assistant Pro, AI Tutor Pro, AI Pathfinder Pro, and AI Trades Explorer Pro. So no matter which tool is being used, these principles of privacy, security, and inclusivity are consistently applied. Each tool may serve a different function, but the experience of a safe and supportive and accessible environment is a shared commitment. And these terms are not just buzzwords for us; they're essential components of everything we build. So we believe in the power of AI to transform and enhance learning and teaching, but only when it's done safely and ethically. So thank you.
Wow. Michael, amazing. You were able to really kind of fit it in. We were running short of time, but you really got it in right on time. So thank you for that. And lots of learning. Some of the conversations we had with Rick and Michael, it's really around some of the guidelines and policies as well. So the tools are free. Anyone can go and try them out. But one of the things that we wanted to also touch on was that privacy piece, which also touches on guidelines. And then the age requirement that you should be over 18. Don't put your private information into the actual AI chatbot and so on. All those tools can transfer to many of the other policies or practices we are thinking about or introducing to our learners, students, and within our organization. So I want to thank you, Rick and Michael, for really kind of giving us a quick snapshot of some of the things you have been doing. And it's really exciting. I will go back to also Jacqueline and our AlphaPlus team. As you can see, there's so much to learn, so much to explore, and it's still changing. It's still changing for all of us. So we hope that the slides that you have access to now will give you some of the links and resources to explore after the session. If you do have any more questions for Rick and Michael, Rick, I didn't ask you, and Michael, I didn't ask you if it's okay to share your emails. If it's okay, we'll put them in the chat. If not, I can just gather the questions and forward them to you. So we can go either way. But let me know. You can just send me a chat. But in the meantime, I wanted to let you know, everybody know, that there's still PD sessions about AI that are coming up. So we have on November 27, we are starting again a round of sessions around AI for educators. So if you missed some of the sessions in the past, we really encourage you to join us and participate to learn more. That it will be Sean, one of the instructors that Tracy mentioned in her presentation. And then a new one is creating AI policy with learners. So you heard Gillian and Tracy talking about the importance of taking the stakeholders, taking them into account as you're preparing your guidelines as well. So there will be a session around that. And we plan more. So we always welcome your feedback and suggestions. And I know Tracy is putting in different links. So we put a link to our feedback. I know we are running short on time before you have to leave, but we really want to make sure that you share with us your thoughts, your opinions. How can we improve some of the work we are doing, whether it is through showcases, PD training, or other offerings from AlphaPlus. And this is going to wrap up our showcase sessions for this year. We hope to come back in April again to have more topics for you to explore. And if you learned, if there's things that we didn't cover but you want to share, send them to us, share them with us. We will be very happy to showcase and share them with others as well. The content from today, the recording, the slides, everything will be posted on the Virtual Showcase website. We always have a page where you can go back to it. All the previous sessions have been posted there, so you will have access to it as well. And with that note, it's 4:29. I know some of you may have to go, but if you want to stay a bit longer, if you have any questions for our guests or comments you may want to include in the chat or just speak up if you wish, we will be here for a few more minutes before you leave. Let us know. And in the meantime, thank you for being here with us today. And thank you to our guests and interpreters.